Hello, everyone. We are going to be exploring one of the oldest areas of St. Petersburg. As you can see, this is the Peter and Paul Fortress, so the so-called Hare Island. That's the cradle. That's where everything started. And the second island to be developed by Peter the Great in the early 1700s would be this island. And the interesting thing is that the Art Nouveau tour is going to be exactly in the same area, on the same island, well, in the same site, so to speak. And this exactly would be the area where the city sort of started, because this was like a garrison, right? It was the fortress, the prison. It was all about, well, it wasn't really the proper city, but the proper city would be here first, and then here with winter palace and everything, and then it would grow and grow, and now it's the second biggest city in Russia. So that's just kind of for us to understand what is going on here. And you can easily find this map online. So you can see this is kind of this separate island over here, a small one. There is a small river that flows in between the city island and the Aptekersky Island, and that's this green patch over there. That's where we are heading to. And if you take a look at the photographs of this area, you will see, yeah, that's the island. This is the island. This is the map of this, well, end of the mid 1700s, and this kind of really zoomed in. So this is the area for this botanical garden, which wasn't called this way. And if you take a look at the photographs, the aerial view, it will be very green up until now. Less green than it was obviously at times of Peter the Great. During times of Peter, the entire area was just wilderness and woods, and it would be just green amidst more green. But in case you forgot, Peter, that's him. The city itself, the garden, everything is what everything was just his brainchild. And so, as I said, this botanical garden is not about the beauty. It's not about impressing you. It's not about for you like taking selfies. No, it started in early 1700s. In fact, nobody really knows the exact date for the foundation of the garden, because the documents burned down in 1737. There was a big fire, and the documents just got destroyed. That's it. So there is no document. But sort of 1712 is considered the so-called the date of the establishing of the garden, which is very early. So basically, just 9 years before that, officially St. Petersburg was established. So it clearly shows you the importance of this idea of actually establishing a garden. Here we are in the area where so it's about collecting also, right? So we'll be talking about the modern day situation as well. Obviously, we'll be talking about the history in the Soviet period and stuff, and the war times, wartime. But here is the area where they also try to collect different species from different areas of the world. And this is the idea ever since the 19th century. In the 18th century, again, it was just to grow herbs for different drugs. Peter learned a lot of it during his travels. Peter brought with himself a lot of gardeners, mostly Germans, and well, they were considered to have been the best pharmacists. Probably that's probably true. And you may remember my tours in on Vasilievsky Island. There was a drugstore, Dr. Pearl. So ever since 18th century, Germans that lived in St. Petersburg, many of the Germans that lived in St. Petersburg actually had drugstores of this, so on this, so that they were involved with drug making. And the so Peter felt it was absolutely vital to have to carry out lots of researches, and also sending specialists abroad, gaining knowledge, exchanging knowledge, bring it here, and well, make new drugs. That was one thing. But unfortunately, after Peter passed away, the garden wasn't really that much used. It was kind of neglected. Catherine the Great sometimes visited it. Sometimes there would be some work done, but there was also a medicinal herbs garden in Moscow. So that kind of was enough. There wasn't really much going on. But in early 19th century, during times of Emperor Alexander I, who was Catherine's grandson, if you may remember, the one who would defeat Napoleon, eventually, or also with the help of a few more people, the kind of the Romanovs again will realize the importance of actually having a big garden, but not just for the sake of the medicinal herbs, but also for many other reasons, to collect the seeds, to carry out research. And the person who made the Romanovs pay attention and invest into this botanical garden was Prince Victor Kochubey. He was a diplomat, a very educated man with a vision for sure. So he was highly praised for his, in general, I would say his, well, the strategic thinking in general. So he was one of the counselors for the monarchs, and he was well versed in different sciences and spoke multiple languages. He was extremely educated and also respected by well, the courts of the European countries. And that's Alexander III. In case you forgot what he looked like, not that much of a, I would say not that impressive, but nevertheless. And there was 500,000 rubles invested, and basically it's very difficult to convert, especially the 19th century. But you can just add about three zeros to that, which means half billion rubles. That's a lot of money. Well, that's a lot of money. You don't really need to convert. It's just really a lot of money were invested. Those were the not the federal funds, but the state budget and also private money of the Romanovs. And just to keep up with the old tradition, there was hired a German um, um, botanist, Edward August von Regel, I think it's the German way of pronouncing that, and he became the director of the botanical garden, and he started everything from scratch. There had been some constructions, obviously. There was something there, but it was unattended, and there was a lot to work on. And Regel he started the research work. He hired professionals, the botanists. He started educational programs for the botanist. He was given carte blanche to set expeditions to collect different plant species. So he was conducting all that. He was in charge of all that, and that's when things started to change very quickly. The collection started to grow, and the medicinal herbs would be only one, I would say, well, kind of one interest, or just one of multiple interests of the facility. The seed bank, seed bank is something that very important. So in case of a famine, natural cataclysms, you will always have the seeds that you could grow and have food. So that's quite important. And at some point by around mid 19th century, this garden was one of the biggest in Europe and the northernmost in Europe, with 7 million species. So just imagine they had samples, well, different species of plants from Australia, from America, from also across Russia, and Also, they realized that well, closer to the I would say turn of the 19th century, we're talking actually about 1870, so not exactly the turn of the 19th century. They realized that they needed new constructions, they needed new pavilions, and they built a pavilion for palm tree pavilion. And just have a look. It's all covered in glass. It's just basically a big, very big greenhouse, because in climate like in St. Petersburg, you cannot really grow a palm tree, right? So there was a big party. So for the re-inauguration of the botanical garden, for the inauguration of the palm pavilion, there was a big gathering. Everyone came, politicians, the royals, aristocrats, and further on, I'm not sure exactly how it was done, but this is the photo. um, Misha took this photo in the museum of the botanical garden that he was able to visit just for a short while. He well, it said that it's the somehow the botanical garden participated in the International Botanical Garden conference in Austria. I don't know how they did it. It must have been probably, well, the speakers maybe would go to Austria and I don't know, tell the story. I'm not sure, but that's just what it said. And it became a big research facility with a council, with the state funding. And this is one of the conventions. And this is the portrait of Peter the Great, because it's all about Peter the Great in this botanical garden, all about it. Obviously, the Romanovs' involvement only uh, facilitated and I would say the accumulation of funds, because once Romanov supported a certain initiative, obviously all the royals and merchants would want to do that. So eventually, the botanical garden, well, this garden of Peter the Great was included in the big chain of botanical gardens across the country, across the Russian Empire. And well, that's how this has been ever since. So this is one of the botanical gardens on the territory of Russia. Obviously, during the well, after the revolution, the garden operated as usual. The Bolsheviks really couldn't care less about what the palms and I don't know, roses and tulips thought about them. So it continued functioning. But during the Second World War time, during the siege of Leningrad, more than 50 missiles eventually, well, or shrapnel, damaged the garden. And there are some photos that I will be sharing as the tour goes of the destructions. And well, the the issue is that a lot of plants just died. The Not all of them though, but a lot of them. So let's say about 15 to 20% of the 7 million well, species collections were preserved. And how would they be preserved? And yes, let me just tell you that this tour is not about the botany. I know nothing about it. This tour is about history and also it's a nice stroll. It's a lovely place. We're going to see a lot of plants. I will share with you a couple of stories, but I'm sure you can tell me a lot more about the plants, about the flora we see than I can. But we are talking here about history. And people who worked in the botanical garden, it would be mostly women and also the elderly, well, the elderly scholars. I just imagine this tiny little gentleman still with the stance and the attitude of the imperial times, still, and what they did, obviously they couldn't be conscripted because they were too old. So what people did in an attempt to try, in an attempt to save the plants, they would take them home. There are multiple stories of how a certain cacti would be saved. Cacti were quite easy to carry around. They weren't big. Like you can't really save a big palm tree. You can't take a big palm tree home, but you can take a small cactus, right? You can take some other plants that I don't even know, but you kind of get the idea. So they would take them home. They would take them to a special room with a stove, like to keep them warm, because obviously there was no running water, there was no central heating, no facilities available under the siege for 872 days. So that was a bit tough. But those species that they were trying to save survived. Many of them survived, and they're still growing in the garden, and they're like the living memorials. They'll be the living memory of those days. And we are now looking at the building that was constructed in the 19th century. It's one of those buildings. It's the part of the orangery, as you may have seen the greenhouse attached to it. So this was added in the 19th century. So when it was decided to add also, well, flowers and exotic tropical and subtropical plants, yeah, obviously it would be done in zoning. And after the Second World War, there was a big shortage of obviously the plants, and they needed to grow something as soon as possible. The seed bank, however, did not wasn't damaged. The seed bank was stored in the St. Isaac's Square. We were at the square a couple of tours ago with virtual tours, the St. Isaac's Cathedral. I think it was, yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yesterday we did Peterhof, and in a couple of hours from now, the recording of Peterhof tour should be available. I will just have to make sure I don't forget and check it. And they had to do something because there was no plans. There was no plans. Something had to be done. So this is when the help came from Batumi Botanical Garden, and also further on from Sukhumi Botanical Garden. Sukhumi is now it's Abkhazia. It's a kind of a contested territory, which Georgia thinks is occupied by Russians, and actually it is true. Um, and Batumi Botanical Garden. Well, on Batumi Botanical Garden tour, which I actually did two of them, right? I made just two tours of the Botanical Garden of Batumi. I provided quite a lot of this information about the specific plants. Dolly, as I said, in a couple of hours from now, the recording of Peterhof tour should be available. Sometimes some viewers experience difficulties loading or while watching, some glitches take place. If it is not available, which can happen, or there's something wrong, at least I can share the recording of a tour I did before as well, because basically it's the same video. I always change something, but the video is the same, and you get to see all the fountains anyway. So just remind me, okay? I just need to just need to be reminded of that. That's it. So in order to save time, I'd rather skip the Q&A and just go on. The ceiling is quite nice, and also you can see here different well, you see there is not really much decoration because it's a functional building, right? It's the building for the research facility. So it didn't, well, these plans don't really need to see beautiful Roman gods and goddesses on the ceiling, but at least there's a little decoration there, right? So little plaster decoration, different flowers. Well, yeah, it looks quite modest and looks quite nice to me. And I was saying about the botanical garden. So the seed bank was safe, but that was the seed bank. The normally you don't really take out the seeds unless it's really important. Well, they needed to save time. They needed to grow things quickly, and so this is when the samples from Sukhum and Batumi Botanical Garden would come from. Um, there was a lot of damage done to the buildings, all the buildings, but they were restored in the Soviet times. Who is this man? Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward. I had no idea until I saw the box, the glass box for the transportation of plants. So Ward, Mr. Ward, invented these glass boxes for transportation of plants. Expeditions are never easy. Natalie, thank you so much for your tip. Expeditions are never easy, especially if it's an exhibition somewhere overseas, let's say Australia, let's say Latin America, it doesn't really matter. And back in the days, it used to be like out of 20, I mean before mid 19th century, before this invention of these glass boxes, let's say out of 20 plant species, 90 would die on their way, which basically um, meant that the expedition was ruined, and it was all the money, time, and effort was all just invested in vain. That's one thing. And it's also about just risking your life, going to jungle, going to some very remote places that you're constantly exposed to insects, animals, wild animals, poisonous herbs and whatnot. So well, that basically just um, meant absolute pointlessness of all the efforts. But with the invention of these glass boxes, it would be 19 flowers making it, that 19 species making it to the botanical garden out of 20. So that's quite a good statistic. So that's what's this Ward's invention. And these glass boxes, it's basically the mini versions of glass houses. So because in these boxes there is a microclimate, right? There's even enough water because the water gets it's just accumulated and after the condensation, it goes back and waters the plant, so that creates a certain temperature regime. So this was kind of the killing two birds with one stone, because you preserve well the plant species, but you also you transport it and you preserve it and you nourish it while it's on its way. So the Ward did a very good job, and the same, well, not the same, but the same mechanisms that will work until nowadays. I'm not a specialist. I have nothing to do with botany, but the greenhouse thing is pretty much just yeah, it's just the same thing. This is the one of the 19th century boxes that was boxes that were used for the transportation. And uh, I believe now they are, I don't know, they just look probably different, but I know that the same technology is used. I mean, it's just a small portable greenhouse, so obviously it's used. So we are in this palm orangery. So palms, they grow fast and they grow very big. So obviously there was needed a very high building, very big one. And here we have like hundreds of different species of exotic plants brought from all over. And also, if you remember, so the story of the Second World War times that I said that the pavilion was badly damaged, that a lot of palm trees were destroyed. That's, by the way, the banana palm, or banana tree. I'm not sure. It's banana tree. It has no fruit. It's just decorative, but that's you could see that, you could remember it from the Batumi tour as well. This palm, the banana tree. And as I said, a lot of palms were damaged and you could not really take the, well, yeah, so this says it's the Japanese banana, a banana tree. Okay. um I trust them here, absolutely. So the I don't know what that is, to be honest. It doesn't look like a banana to me. It doesn't look like a banana, so it could be something from some other plant. Let me know later on when we have the Q&A. Okay, so let's move on. Uh, what the workers of the botanical garden tried to save, at least little some roots, some seeds. They treated those plants as, humans, as the humans wounded in the war zone, and they tried to save them. Look at this palm tree. So there are survivals too. There are survivors, and this is one of the survivors. There's also ivy all around it, which is not so good, but I guess the museum, well, I guess the botanical garden know what they're doing. That palm tree is one of the survivors. So, as I said, the survival rate was not very impressive. Nevertheless, so in the botanical garden, you can see the trees and yeah, it's mostly trees that will be marked with this yellow ribbon. So these are the survivals of the Second World War times. And it became a tradition some, I guess, 7 or 8 years ago. For the Victory Day, these trees are decorated with the St. George ribbon, which is now a very bad symbol, which is now, well, they totally ruined. I mean, it's originally a very good idea, a very good symbol of remembrance, right, of the heroism, of people in the Second World War times. But now it's used and abused in the current war, and so it's no longer possible to use that. There you go. So this is the survivor of the siege of Leningrad. And you can see this is a survivor. That's the Washingtonia palm tree. And we have a lot of Washingtonias in Israel. Well, this is a very bad quality photo. Again, Misha took the photo of the photo in the museum. But you kind of have an idea, right? A lot of plants died. And obviously during the siege, with a shortage of food, whenever it was possible, they would grow vegetables too. Basically, the entire city turned into one big botanical garden for the summertime. There would be a lot of activities, educational activities carried out by the workers of the botanical garden. They would go and teach people of Leningrad, which is Soviet name of St. Petersburg, as most of you know, but I just have to remind in case there is someone else joining us, or, well, I'm going to be sharing it on YouTube, so I need to repeat some of those basic things. So Leningrad, St. Petersburg is one of the same cities. So Leningrad is the Soviet name, and the workers of the botanical garden would go and teach the locals how to grow vegetables, how to differentiate between poisonous and not poisonous mushrooms, and well, how to take care of these and that plants, and how to, well, all these things, because people didn't know that, but people had to provide for themselves and for their family. And this is when some seeds really came in very handy, but they were not used up, and they would be all, well, refilled. This is just a lovely lily pond. I'm not sure which year this was taken. These are, again, photos from the museum. And there are quite a lot of pre-revolutionary photographs, not so many of the 19th century. So uh, mostly 1915, 1916. Yeah, obviously lemon tree, um, tangerines, pineapples. So with pineapples, by the way, one will think, okay, well, maybe pineapples came somewhat in the 19th century, but no, pineapples were, um, we found out how to grow pineapples at times of Peter the Great, because Peter loved pineapples so much. He tried it during his travels to Europe. He liked it so much that he asked his first gardeners to somehow figure out how to grow pineapples in such climate. It says Botanical Museum. So that's the actually that's the building from the Soviet times, and this is just a little. It's not even a flower bed. I'm not entirely sure what it is. So, but as I said, it's not really about flowers. There are sometimes some blossom festivals, but when Misha was there, which was July, there wasn't really a particular blossom festival. Normally, there's like a big lilac festival, the Peony Festival too, that I remember. But well, I guess it just anyway, it's nice as it is. But so, as I said, they somehow figured out how to grow pineapples in the 18th century. So, ever since then, pineapples would be grown in St. Petersburg. And also, they since there would be always a constant, research and experimenting carried out, they would learn new things all the time. They would experiment with obviously the selection of different species, and also they learn some tricks. For example, and we are talking about the Romanovs now, right? So anyway, it's all about the Romanovs in this or that way, kind of. Alexandra Fedorovna, wife to Nicholas II, loved lilacs, and she liked to have them in her room every day in Alexander Palace, where they moved in 1904. But the lilac season is in spring and it's about just several weeks. Well, we did the lilac blossoming in Tbilisi in spring. I think it was May when my dad was visiting. So it's only just a couple of weeks indeed. It's a bit different depending on the region and the weather conditions, but that's approximately that. But she wanted to have them all year round. And you know what? They managed to crack this. They experimented a lot, and so that they found out that if they keep the plant in the sub-zero temperatures, imitating, like making the plant think it's winter time, and then at some point they would place the flower in the warm temperature, like warm enough for the lilac trees to start blossoming. And this is how the empress had her fresh bouquet of lilacs every day. Yeah, there was a lot of work done. A lot of work done. And right now, for her birthday, the Alexander Palace places bouquets of lilacs in every room as just, well, a memory, I would say, to commemorate the Empress. There are a lot of, as you can see, a lot of postcards. It was quite a popular place for a walk, because part of the garden was open to public. This is the old pavilion. It later on would be rebuilt because it was not big enough. One of course, I could not but share with you some of the gems of the botanical garden. So there is a special kind of a cactus called the Queen of the Night. It also has a Latin name, and just don't even make me say that. I don't know. Well, Queen of the Night, anyway. And this cactus is known, well, for being very picky and difficult to take care of, and it would bloom like once in a blue moon. honestly. Because, well, from I remember when I was in the botanical garden, we were told on a tour that once there hadn't been any flower, any blossoming for about 5 years, like in a row. And whenever so and it blooms just for several hours once a year, but it can be more than once a year, like we know already. And there is nothing that we can do. So it either blooms or not. And I found on the official YouTube channel of the Botanical Garden a live stream, the recording of a live stream. If you think that 1 hour of my live stream is a lot, go check out 10-hour long live stream where they filmed exactly how the flower opened up and bloomed for, I don't know, for several hours, and then it was it. So it actually shows you. You can obviously, time lapse it and everything, but it was a 10-hour live stream recording there. Yeah, so that's one of the highlights. This is one of the most precious. You can't really say exhibit, right? So one of the most precious items of the collection. Let's put it like that. Obviously, I didn't. Well, I didn't want to sound. I hope I didn't sound too critical of the plants. I mean, flowers, obviously flowers are important. This wasn't really just the season for like big blossoming when Misha was there, so it's where mostly. And well, I'm admiring this big orange tree very much. I really really enjoying the way it looks very Art Nouveau-ish. And again, we are in the area that is the most Art Nouveau-ish neighborhood of St. Petersburg anyway. I mean, it looks gorgeous to me. It also reminds me a little bit somewhere, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what. Well, let me know on the chat later on when we have a Q&A. We'll have the Q&A. So obviously there was, it was, flowers are important. And there are a lot of festivals held in springtime. As I said, tulips festival, lilacs festival, roses and peonies, and some more flowers. So they have a lot. They kind of, their calendar is pretty busy, but just not all year round due to the due to the weather conditions, due to the climate. The tulips. Well, Peter brought tulips. Peter brought bulbs from the Netherlands. He brought a lot of them, and he will be purchasing even more of them. And there is a great collection of tulips, the collection goes ever since times of Peter the Great. So the collection survived, the seed bank survived, some old collections survived, and you can find some exhibits, in the museum. I like this photo very much. So that's what Botanical Garden looks during winter. There's not really much work done. I mean, there's a lot of work, but it's all in the greenhouses, in the orangeries, and it looks quite lovely still to be able to walk around the botanical garden and actually being able to see something from behind the trees, because the trees are pretty big, and a lot of leaves on them, so you don't really see much around. So there are some old photographs again that Misha just took pictures of the inaugurations of new buildings, the new museum building, the new labs. So that's the lane of the cornerstone for the new complex of exhibition rooms. There was also a library. So there was a laboratory, there was library, there was a seed bank, there were offices, and a very big library, by the way, with a very good book collection with some really really rare do you call it atlas of like animals? Well, not animals, sorry, the plants, like different books on botany from all over the world. And they carried on the same way as a research facility up until nowadays. And again, this is more about preservation, and it's more about uh, research rather than just beautiful photographs one can take. So I hope you haven't been disappointed. I hope you're not disappointed just by that. That's one of the reasons why I never really took you there, because it's well, the botanical garden works really weird hours, and normally it would be like they would close the same time most of you would wake up. I'm talking about my American audience, and also it was important really to find a good time, and so that, well, flowers are there or anything. Well, it is what it is. And there are some photographs from the library. As you can see, this is a new building, so constructed in the late 19th century. um, a lot of space. This botanical garden was considered one of the best and biggest in terms of its collection in Europe. And as I said, it's the northernmost botanical garden, because mm, it's mainly due to the climate. So one would think that there's not much that can actually grow in such climate, but it's not exactly true. Well, this is also from some of the catalogs, I believe. So it says this is the house next to this is the house of the head of the botanical garden. There were buildings constructed for the workers. You could live on the territory of the botanical garden. The director lives on the territory of the botanical garden as well. And there were even kids facilities next to the botanical garden, so it would be convenient for the museum, for the garden workers after work to go pick up their children and go elsewhere. So that was very convenient, and it was very, very, very well thought through. And it I believe it's quite just you see, well, there are sometimes beautiful flower arrangements. Sometimes that's also one of the house of the administration. Well, there's something going on here. And photos from the Soviet times. As you see, sport was always a very important thing in the Soviet Union, and the botanical garden was used as a park during the Soviet times. Big part of the territory was used as just a park accessible to everyone, but the research never really stopped. So the building was never really the buildings were never really occupied by any other organizations. No communal apartments. No, it's just no, a research facility. And well, that was an important thing to do, obviously, for the new Soviet state, which had been so drained by the revolution and then the Civil War and the First World War. So obviously that was important, because the supplies of food were scarce, because indeed there was a big hunger that actually ignited the first revolution. And yeah, so let's have a Q&A. Let me turn on the chat. So as I said, there's going to be a 40-minute break before the next tour, which is the sexual revolution in the post-perestroika times, in the perestroika times. Let me share with you the links for those who joined a little later, a little after, well, we started. Okay. Well, no, give me a second. That's not the link. Okay, we can go like that. Oh yeah, there you go. Sorry, they're just too long. And I will just see the chat in a minute. There you go. These are the recordings of my Jaffa tours I did yet last night. Now, let me share the links for the upcoming tours. So the three of them. And the last one, the Jerusalem, and all the links that you may need. And just a reminder for my sponsors that next Friday, There's going to be a get together. I haven't sent out the links yet, so don't worry. It's just that I haven't really had a moment to do that. And we'll be talking um, what is available. Sorry, Dolly, the video is already available. The St. Isaac, so even earlier because um, last time it never, well, it definitely, oh, let me check. It definitely was available 24 hours or maybe even 25 hours after the tour. So it's great. Good. So let me share the link for that tour as well. So nobody really has to go looking for it. The link is very simple. Well, virtual tour dot online/recordings, but here it is. So just to save you time, I hope it works. Yes, everyone is able to access the recordings, but I mean, it's just a page, it's just a link. But yes, like playing it, sometimes I believe it has something to do with your players, or maybe the way the recordings are made. I don't know, but it's all made like automatically. I'm not sure what the issue is. Yeah, thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me for this even a bit shorter tour of an important place for Peter the Great. So it won't load for you. So as I said, it could be something with the player, it could be something with the browser. I tried on my phone, that didn't work. I tried a different browser on my laptop and it worked. So maybe, playing with the browser could help. Yeah, I don't know really. I don't really know. I haven't been able to understand what's going on there, indeed. So this is it. If there are no questions, okay, good. So the arbiters were are impressive, certainly must for the tropical plants and trees. Okay. So as I said, you know a lot more than I know about botany, and I just could not take all that in, and I just preferred to focus. Plus, there was not really much of the flowers to see, but some impressive collection of palm trees and the orange trees, subtropical plants. There are not so many, I would say, tropical plants, mostly subtropical. And if there is a banana, the banana doesn't have actual fruit. It's like it's called like a textile banana there. Um, so I'm not sure. So you see, maybe just a different browser. I wish I knew really what it depends on. And yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. We know there are ways to support me. You can send me a PayPal donation. You could buy me a coffee. And you see, well, my tour for the, my link for all the tours. AnnaYourGuide.com. It's all there. My world virtual tours are there as well. So everything. And a couple of tours for the upcoming weekend are already there. So I hope it won't take me this long to send a newsletter because this last newsletter I sent you only like on Friday, but it's just really, it's been full on. I'm very sorry. So I'll see you soon in 35 minutes from now, and we'll be singing music and everything. Yeah, and well, Misha did all the filming. He spent really like, I don't know, hours and hours like filming for me in different areas, and we're going to see the beautiful Art Nouveau Avenue and the little park as well that he filmed. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye. Luckily, it's been recorded, so.